Our presenter this morning is Mike Matousek. In January of 2020, just a few months back, he began work with the OPT office as financial manager. Prior to that, he was an 11-year veteran with the Alabama Department of Transportation Finance and Audits Bureau. With that bureau, he was an external audit supervisor. His area of expertise included indirect cost audits and CPA work paper reviews focusing on federal acquisition regulations, as well as various reviews of costs incurred by ALDOT bureaus. Mike graduated from Alabama State University in 2002 with a bachelor's degree in finance, and in 2009 with a Master of Accountancy degree from the same school. Please welcome Mike Matousek. Mike, program's yours.
As Mr. Esty said, I started with the OPT after working with the Alabama DOT, their external audits. Majority of what we did was dealing with engineering firms, and small portion was transit, but it was a significant portion because whenever we did get a call from Randy's troop saying, we need y'all, we would first find out where the agency was located and then started researching local restaurants and local sites because we knew we'll be there for a while. So when Gary approached me and charmed me into joining OPT, I knew that I was in for a challenge, and that changes were necessary and that they were expected. Before we even started thinking or talking about changes, at first we had to learn the way that things were done currently. And I was lucky to have Marshida King. Is Marshida here still? See, I told y'all, the moment you give out the certificates. But Marshida was currently working on the invoices, and she sat down with me patiently, taught me the way that the invoices were being processed. We were able to write down the process step by step. Katrina Perry helped me a hell of a lot learning about the way the FTA awards work and how to do some other things that were required of the OPT in the background. But after about a month, we started seeing some of the ways that we can improve the system, and so we started looking for a new way. One of the things that we noticed that invoices were disappearing sometimes. We blamed gnomes at ALDOT that apparently steal them and make them disappear. But we started a digital log to keep track of where the invoices are and what's happening with them. So the log helped us a lot because essentially when a regional manager would receive an invoice from an agency, they would log it into the Excel spreadsheet, and I could see what's in the pipeline. Eventually, once they send it to me, I would start working on my part of the log, but that way we could tell the process and kind of go back and see invoices that maybe were not sent to me yet, but were with a regional manager, so we could tell that maybe the regional manager is working on the process. If it was taking too long, I could prompt them and ask them, hey, what's wrong with this invoice right here? You've had it for a few days. Why are you not sending it to me? And they would let me know, well, there's a problem that we're working on with the agency. We have started a digital archive for the invoices so that we always have a copy that's accessible to us from anywhere. We can take a look at the invoice. We can take a look at previous billings. If there was an issue, we can see what was in the backup. Amanda in the back over there is the one who's the gatekeeper of the archive. Thank you, Amanda. the invoices that started coming in at the beginning were mainly wrong. It was not really that they were wrong, but it was that we would get 25 invoices and they were filled out 25 different ways. And so if you don't receive any guidance and you create your own way of processing and filling out that invoice, over a very long time you become an expert at filling out that invoice. And if you're filling it out incorrectly, then you become an expert at filling it out incorrectly. So one of the things that we started working on right off the bat with the regional managers was to try to get everybody on the same page and start giving feedback on, hey, can you change the way you're doing this? Can you change the way you're doing that? I mainly stayed out of it because we thought it was better for the agency to be contacted by one person rather than be confused with getting different calls. And every time I would call an agency, I would say, hey, this is Mike Matousek with Office of Public Transportation at University of Alabama in Huntsville. And the answer was always the same. Who are you? So I just started going to Lauren. I started going to Chandra, and I would tell them, this is kind of what we've run into. Can you take care of that? And then we have also realized that the process was a bit slow for the reasons that basically until it got to me, nobody was really looking at those invoices. So we have started working really on the communication from the regional managers to you guys, to the agencies, and we have also started a discussion with the Department of Finance and the audits to see if we can make subtle changes to the way we process the invoices. We have started looking at more things in your cost recap sheets because we thought at that point that's our best tool to really review your financials and see if there are maybe questions that we may have based on what the numbers are telling us. To speed up the review process is the regional managers actually sat down with me and they said, hey, show us how this is supposed to be done so that we know. And so we did a quick training session, and the invoices basically started coming to them, and the regional managers started putting those invoices through those few filters that we have created. And that way, if they caught something right off the bat, they were able to call the agency and say, hey, can you go ahead and fix it and send it back to me? And it didn't take time for the invoice to get to me, because by then it's been several days. So that has helped. We have approached finance and audits. Audits was very creative with their way. They essentially, when they receive an invoice that's already processed, what they do is they make a copy, and then they immediately send the invoice on to finance to be processed and sent out to the comptroller's office so that you all can pay it. What audits does is they keep the copy, and then if they want to review any of the transactions, they call you and ask, can you send us a backup for something? But they're asking for a backup on an invoice that has already been sent out and already been processed. So I think that helped speed up the process. So after roughly a month of implementing these changes, we felt good. We felt like things were moving along really well. We thought we had some good results with the log, and the invoices that started coming in from the regional managers, they had a lot less discrepancies. And there's an old Chinese curse that says, may you live in interesting times. And boy, things got interesting since then. So everything has changed right around the beginning of March. They changed a lot. We stayed at home for roughly a month, couldn't really work on any of the invoices. Then the federal government came back and they said, hey, we'll, CARES Act, we'll give you a bunch of money. And guess what? We're going to do it retroactively. And we're going to start it in the beginning or in the middle of a month, so that you can prorate things. And none of the systems that we had in place at that point worked. So we had to change so many things, but also a lot of things have changed for the better. And the things that were impossible all of a sudden become possible. We saw Aldot, be more flexible than a Romanian gymnast at that point, and I applaud them on that. Brad helped me out to set up a VPN access so I can work remotely to get into CPMS, which I believe was unheard of at that point. We went to Kelly Brendel in finance and talked about digital signatures, which again was unheard of. And Kelly said, well, I processed a couple, they went through, why don't we try it? And so we did, and it worked. Speaking of the digital signature, I would like to ask you guys, please use blue ink when you sign the F-25s and send it over. That's just something that we've been getting hammered with as well. And again, a lot of this just came into communication between the agencies, between the regional managers. There was so much information that was coming out that was valid today and invalid tomorrow. And I know that this was frustrating for a lot of y'all. It was frustrating for us. It was frustrating for Aldot because Aldot was getting very little guidance from the federal government. I was listing the different organizations that were involved in the communication process, and I thought, it would be so great if we could add FTA to that list, but we just couldn't because there was nothing coming from them. But the digital signature was a huge, huge improvement, I believe, for the agencies because before you would send in an invoice, the invoice would come to the office, it would be reviewed by a manager, and then it would either be paid or it would be sent back with adjustments, changes, saying, hey, this is wrong, right? Then it gets back to you. Snail mail takes a few days to get to you. Then you make your changes, you reprint it, you have to notarize it, you have to mail it back to all that. Well, now you send it to Chandra. Chandra takes a look at it. She says, oh, this is incorrect. She sends it back to you. You print it, you stamp it, sign it, scan it, and you have it back within 20 minutes. So I think that was a big game changer to be allowed to use the digital signature. We have a couple of tools that we use to check the invoices that you guys send us. This one here was actually in place at Aldot already when I got there. So this is just a little invoice balance sheet. Hey guys, can I move the mouse on this or not? So this is basically where I come in and add your figures from the invoices, and you can see where you have your award, your 1,000 numbers listed for your operating and admin. The yellow is for the pre-CARES Act, the green is for CARES Act, and then at the end you have your cumulative total for all your billing, which is an important number because that actually goes on the F-25. That's where we see a lot of errors. And then the very last column just shows the remaining balance. But it essentially shows what you build each month for your operating and your administrative expenses. So whenever I start checking your F-25, this is where I go first. I want to see if column 13 on the F-25 has the correct number, because it's supposed to show what you have billed up to this point, up to this particular invoice. The other one, and this is a biggie, that's your cost recap. So the cost recap sheet is a tool that basically calculates I'm right here, by the way. It calculates your current expenditures for your operating and for your administrative expenses, and calculates your reimbursement. It also keeps up with the same running balance that you have built. So all this information for your F-25 to build it correctly is already included in this. Guys, is there any way you can help me with the mouse? Nope. Is it hard to read?
Wait, what are you trying to do exactly?
Well, try to make it bigger, but also try to do it where I can use the mouse on the screen.
Drag it over. So you have two.
I didn't see
You
that.
have two screens. So
Oh, I
you
gotcha.
need to go to the right, and then you'll be able to use your mouse.
So I'm supposed to work here.
Yeah. So it's basically here, but
That's easy. Thanks. More? Guys, I'm sorry. I didn't realize this is going to be that difficult to navigate. Okay. All right. So we started looking at this tool because it gives you just about all the information, and I say just about because we'll get to that later. It gives you your line item budget, and it shows you how much you have spent of it and what's left, and it shows you individual billings for the different months. So for me as an auditor, this was very interesting because all of a sudden, and before, everybody was hiding the columns because it was not interesting, but I wanted to see what the different figures were and how they change month to month. And if there was something that, like for example, you see where fuel and oil is $1,250, $895, $2,000, and all of a sudden here it's almost $6,000. So that would be a question where Lauren knows I'd be calling her and asking, hey, can you call the agency and just kind of see what happened? Or why was there no fare box that month? So those to me were the important tools of this spreadsheet. again, it's $100 over here, professional services. Here it's $3,000. So again, I'd be calling Lauren or Chandra and saying, hey, can you reach out to that agency? And generally, it's just a easy explanation that immediately comes back. But I feel like that was one of our duties, because in the end, we are all here playing with the taxpayers' money and the stewardship of the taxpayer funds. That's really one of the main duties that we have. I think especially for you, Laird, I think that's going to be a very interesting spreadsheet, because what that gets us to is this baby right here. And I don't know how well you guys can see it, but that's the F-25 itself. And there are so many ways to get this thing wrong, and I've seen a lot of them. That was a cost recap, yeah. I'm sorry, guys, I don't think I can make this any bigger. So I'm going to move the cursor here to kind of point at things. The agency name over here, that's pretty self-explanatory. One of the things that I would actually really love to see there would be a telephone number or a contact for the person who filled out the F-25, so that I could call you. Because again, a lot of times I have to, and it's easier with the agencies, with the regions. If I'm dealing with like a 5310 or somebody that I don't specifically know very well, I have to go through the switchboard and look up your number on Google, and then I'm calling you and you have no idea who I am. You don't return my calls, and all I'm trying to do is give you money. So that would be great to have some sort of a contact number right in there. This right here is the invoice number. Again, so many creative ways that.
Where do you want them to put that contact, that name and number?
Anywhere, really. Anywhere. Yeah. I mean, it even down at the bottom where the signature is right here, somewhere there would be fine. Yeah. Sure. Mm-hmm. The paper is kind of like a honey badger. It don't care. If you guys put it wrong on there, it'll stay wrong. So the way I see it is, I'm really hoping that when we do this for Atomic, that the amount of errors will be eliminated, just because it will not let you to do those errors. If you type in your agency code, it'll pre-fill the agency's name, the correct address that's in the system, and then you get into this portion right here where we type in the distribution. These numbers right here may seem meaningless, but they're not. The account number, the 4329, it actually tells me that it's a non-capital expense. If it's a 43206, then it's a capital expenditure. These little numbers next to it, they also sorry guys, I'm fighting with my mouse again. These numbers right here, the 0405, 0406, that's your difference between operating and administrative. If you are dealing with the RPTO code, that's for your rural transportation, your 5311. But if you use RPTO-C, that means that it's a capital expenditure, and that then the number in the front has to be 43206. So there are ways to follow it on the award letters that you get, and I'm hoping that, again, with Atomic, a lot of that will be automated, where it will not allow you to make the errors that are made. we see a lot of the errors here in these last columns. The very last column is the one that I cannot change for you. If there is an error here, whether it's typo, whether it's in calculation, I cannot change it. If your invoice number is incorrect, I cannot change it. Does this thing have a pointer on it? Oh, great. Which one? The red one?
Yeah, that's it.
So the last column here, I cannot change. The invoice number, I cannot change. A lot of times we see a error where you basically use your previous month's invoice number, which means that the moment I go through all the trouble of putting it into the ALDOT system, the ALDOT system kicks it out because you can't use the invoice number twice. This here is a column, the column 11. This is the one that that tracks what was paid previous to this invoice. So it's a cumulative amount. A lot of times we see the amount of previous invoice or something like that typed in there. But I have to say that those errors are less and less now. So I feel like we're getting our training out, and I promise we will be doing more of it. Speaking of which, can I ask a question from you guys? If you can raise your hand, how many of you actually physically deal with the F-25? And I don't mean just sign it. I mean actually prepare the F-25. All right, nice. All right, good. All right, very good. So so this right here is basically all of your invoices that were paid for or billed for this particular award up to this invoice here. Then this column includes the two combined, which means that on the next invoice, essentially, what's in this column will be shifted to this column. Does that make sense? Okay. Be careful with this memo box, because we see a lot of times where people type in it's for, January 2020, and then it stays there for the next 2 years because people forgot that particular field. So if you do choose to use it, and we encourage you, Brad's suggestion was you can put your contact number there as well, so that I can call you personally if there is an issue. Just make sure you pay attention to it and you update it. Again, this was stressed to me by Randy Stroop. Please use blue ink to sign the F-25 document. And I think that about covers this one. I was closing on a house the other day, and I was at the real estate attorney's office, and she used the embossing stamp on one of the documents, and then she used this thing right here. And we have seen invoices where folks use pencils to darken out the embossed. But this is just a pad. You open it up and you put it over the embossed, and it makes it very legible so that you can easily scan and print the document. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you guys because I thought that was pretty cool.
So that's okay to use that
Yes.
instead of something that's indented or raised.
Well, if you have it raised and you scan it, can't really tell. So this is just a creative way to take the embossed stamp and make it visible on a copy or on a stamp. And they sell you know, the stamps for the notaries now, where it's not embossed, but it's you know, a visible stamp. I just think this is kind of, you know, it's a $10 solution. Mm-hmm. So this is a little snapshot of your operating expense portion of the cost recap sheet, and I did an overlay. I don't know how well you can see it, but you can see where your total for the amount due is correlating with what's in your operating expense for that month, right here. And over here, the running total corresponds with what your running total is on that little balance spreadsheet. So this is the little tools that I use to make sure that your F25 is correct when it comes to me. And then, of course, so that's your March total. That's your March total up there. That's your cumulative total, and that's your cumulative total up in the balance spreadsheet. And this is where you have the same numbers. You got the previously billed, then you have your operating expense for the month, and that's your column 11, where you have the cumulative total for the month. Previously billed this month, the cumulative. And the column 11, I'm sorry, column 11 will be column 13 in the next invoice. So right now, or up to now, right now, we have had a very reactive approach to invoicing and invoicing issues, which means you guys call us and you say, hey, we have a problem, and then we, you know, really essentially have no other tool than call audits and have them come out and hopefully fix it. It's not. It doesn't require much effort, but it's too late. By the time the problem happens, it's already happened. Oh, nice. Yeah. I'll take the red. Thanks. So ideally, we would go for a more proactive approach. The proactive approach it's not going to happen overnight, but we're hoping that it's going to have more of a long-lasting effect. Training is one of them. That's why I was asking how many of you guys actually deal with the F25, so I was pleased. We would like to start maybe doing smaller classes in more of a regional setting, have, you know, fewer agencies come out, but mainly send out the personnel that's actually, you know, in the trenches and actually works, because a lot of the errors that we feel like is made because people really don't understand the mechanics behind the F25 document. So I think if we do training over time, that will eliminate a lot of the errors down the road. Some of the agencies, I would like to come out and come see you and sit down, take a look at your invoicing procedures. If there are any questions, we can explain it and get on the same page there. And then, of course, continue with audits, but again, in a proactive manner, not after the fact where somebody's already in trouble. And it all just comes down to just being good stewards of federal funds. Are there any questions so far about the F-25? Because I'm about to start getting more into the audits. Yes, ma'am. Can you, I'm having trouble hearing you. Great question, by the way. Did everybody hear? No? Lady was asking what happens if you combine two invoices. What will be the next invoice number? And the answer is the next invoice number will be your next invoice number. So if you have invoice number 5 and then you combine two invoices, those two invoices will go on invoice number 6. You don't have to have 12 invoice numbers in the year. Some of the larger agencies bill every 3 months. And so when that happens, we have 4 invoices. Now, one thing that I would ask, and I think Matthew is one of the agencies, don't combine the costs in your cost recap sheet. If you don't mind, keep your cost recap sheet. Even if you're combining the invoices, keep those costs separate. And one of the reasons is that I actually do want to see the difference from month to month. Great question. Is there another one?
Yeah, I have a recap question, and I think you may have already been in on this. And above that, I just want to say things have really been awesome in the past couple months. And going through this, we appreciate all the efforts by Alba and UAH on this. A big thing that has come up with us is in the recap form. I don't know who developed that originally, but it's not. I don't think it's from FDA. I think that's an Alba programmatic form. That the in-kind item on that form is essentially a dead cell. And I don't know if that's because no one has ever used it. But I mean, if we want to do something in kind, they say we'll put it in that cell, but it doesn't actually do anything because that cell's a dead cell in the recap. And we recently asked Alba to elevate that up to FTA, and I think that they're going to do that. But in my mind, it's not an FTA question. It's an Alba programmatic question. FDA allows us to use it in kind. They don't care how we process it per se, as long as we're following the super circular and stuff like that. It's doing that. So I guess I would just kind of throw it out there. We would love to see that as part of this process to make sure true in-kind costs, not fixed costs, not indirect costs, but true in-kind costs that don't fit into those categories would be able to be incorporated into the category.
And what the treatment would be.
That's correct.
Matthew, I gotta be honest with you. The revenue section of the recap sheet is not something that has been used in the past. It has been brought up, and it has definitely been brought up by the CARES Act. And it is something that we are working on. We discuss it often. I talked to Brad about it yesterday, actually. But we're coming up with solutions. Thing is that we'll get back to you. Is there any other questions about the F-25, guys? Because I'm about to get into the audit prep. The F-25, it's not a complicated form, and I think Atomic has a real opportunity to basically make it point and click. It's not perfect, and the cost recap sheet is not perfect either. Not just from the standpoint of the user, as Matthew says, but also from the standpoint of compliance and audit, and we'll get into that as well. But if there are no more questions about the F-25, then I'll slide on into the audit part. So we have started earlier, actually last year, kind of a partnership, if you will, with the external audits section. And we realized that we should take more of a proactive approach to transit, because most of the time when we were called in, it was when things were to the point where they were bad, and it could have been prevented if there was a little more hands-on approach. So the decision was made to kind of come up with a two-prong attack, and that was to do desk reviews and then pick some on-site visits. So this is some of the reasons why audits decided to become more involved and more helpful, if you will. We saw where things were billed multiple times. The items would be billed, but then the actual payments were not made to the vendors, so the expenses were outstanding. And we have to remember that this is all supposed to be based on reimbursement basis. So you're supposed to bill ALDOT for expenses that you have actually paid to the vendors. But these are some of the reasons why ALDOT just wanted to have more involvement, and the external audits agreed to look into it. I believe they actually hired additional staff for transit specifically. Desk review is essentially something that audits designed so that when you send in your F-25, they will pick randomly a few invoices each month, and they take a look at the backup. They may have a look-see at your costs and request some backup documentation for the costs. Maybe see if you can fax over a receipt or an invoice from a vendor. Just establish the existence of that and validity of that particular cost item. Some of those document examples you can see at the bottom, the expense forms or invoices or receipts. If you guys do cost allocation, then kind of walk us through it. Help us understand how that cost allocation is arrived at. There will also be some on-site visits. A lot of this was sort of put on hold because of COVID-19, but I do believe that Alex Hetzel from External Audits did pay visit to a couple of agencies. I'm pretty sure Chilton County was visited, and East Alabama, and this is kind of a growing pains type of ordeal, because we're learning about your structure, and a lot of times the idea behind an audit is fairly simple. I take a look at your invoice, I see a cost that was billed to ALDOT, then I want to see where that cost was recorded in your general ledger. I want to see some sort of a backup documentation for that cost, whether it's an invoice or whether it's a receipt. And then I want you to show me in your bank where the item was paid, either with a canceled check or in your online banking or something. But it's not always that simple, because some of you have, structure where there's multiple entities involved, and yes, this cost was billed by our agency to ALDOT, but the records are kept in a different town because it was that town's agency that was actually performing the service. So there are complications, and audits is learning along with you guys. But just remember that in the end, it actually is there to help you. It's to make sure that things are done correctly, and that nobody gets in trouble with misuse of federal funds. So this is some of the documentation that you should have in your office in order to prepare for an easy and quick audit. The invoices with the backup, a lot of it depends on your filing system. I would very strongly advise people to, if you want to be well prepared for the audit, to have your filing system based on the actual invoice. So if you have invoice for a month, have all the backup behind the invoice, because a lot of times we would walk into agencies and we would ask for invoice so-and-so, and they would give us the invoice, but then the backup was in the vendor files, and everything was filed by vendor, so then they had to go in and compile all the documentation, which made it more cumbersome. But that's just a suggestion. So this is, again, the cost recap sheet. And it shows a lot of information. It shows how much was spent on maintenance and repairs, and it shows how much was spent on fuel and oil. But in the end, when you're looking at it, this is just a number. So me, as an auditor looking at this number, I can tell just about as much as you can, honestly. So there is not a hell of a lot of detail in the individual category. I just know that there is a number that was billed, and I can compare it month to month, but that's about it. And from an audit standpoint, that's obviously not enough. If I was doing this, I would want to be able to show what makes that number up, what individual transactions. And you guys attach your copy of your general ledger for the month to the F-25 and you send it in, but you can't really tell much from the general ledger unless you spend hours and hours reviewing it, and even then you may not be able to locate every transaction. This right here was something that we came up with at audits, and it basically copies your indirect cost sheet. I mean, sorry, got back to audits. It essentially copies your line item budget, and it copies the amount that was put on the cost recap sheet, but underneath it, you can see individual transactions with maybe a invoice number or a general ledger number or some sort of identifiable number that you can then track, and you, as an auditor, you can take a look at it, and now you really can see. You can see where that number comes from. So then from these transactions, this is very easy to audit, because I can take a look at it, then I can see, that there is $2,550 from TCL repair, and I can say, hey, can you show me that particular invoice? You show me the invoice, I take a look at it, I see where the transaction occurred, it took place. I can then say, well, let's take a look at your general ledger and see if it was properly recorded. You show it to me in your general ledger, and then I can say, let's take a look at your bank and see, whether that transaction was paid. You show me a copy of a canceled check, and we're done. This was your audit. So this is a very easy and I'm sure that this would be easier to put together for a smaller agency. I'm sure that it's going to be a lot more work for a larger agency. But in the end, this is what really helps you prepare for your audit. It helps you make sure that your documentation is supported with every detail that you possibly could be asked for, and it gets your auditor out of the door the fastest. This is basically just continuation of the same sheet with different details. So during the audits, we saw a lot of our problems in the fuel category, in the maintenance and repair, tires. We have also ran into issues with travel, where some of the agencies were essentially prepaying for upcoming travel. So again, please remember, all the expenses that are submitted on an F-25 need to be on reimbursement basis. So only costs that have occurred, only transactions that have taken place should be submitted for payment. We have also seen that a lot of the agencies that actually got in trouble have had issues with their income statement, mainly on the revenue side. The moment revenue started slipping, because this is not a kind of business that will get you rich, by no means. But it was the agencies that were slipping on the contract revenue side, where they didn't have the money for local match. That's where things began to slip and slide a little bit. So part of the audit, I think should be to look at the financial strength of the organization and maybe see if we can lend a hand, lend advice, help with cost-cutting suggestions, but mainly to alert you. This is some of the audit documentation that the auditor will want to look at when they're researching your payroll information. Generally, during an audit, we have found very little issues with payroll, because payroll is already heavily audited, and is audited by the drivers that drive for y'all. Because I don't think I've met anyone who doesn't know what their paycheck will be. And if their paycheck is something that it's not supposed to be, they'll let you know, unless you overpaid them. This is basically the bread and butter of the backup information. People that will come to audit you, they will want to see the vendor invoices, they will want to see receipts, they will want to see proof of the payment, the check from the bank or a printout from your bank to see where the transaction was actually paid and the money left the bank. When you get receipts, and those receipts that you print it today and in a week they start fading, make copies of them. because if you pull out a bunch of receipts 3 years down the road from, fuel purchases or something, you won't be able to read them. Also, keep the itemized portion of the receipt, especially for meals, because a state auditor will not accept the receipt portion that is not itemized, especially if it's from TGI Fridays or something. Anytime there's a chance of being something fun on that receipt, they want to see it itemized. You know what's fun. Travel. You guys know what travel forms are required, especially for RTAP. Specify what type of travel it is. If it's not RTAP, don't bill it under RTAP. If the travel hasn't taken place yet, don't bill for it. There's credit cards. Nobody charges your credit card until you actually show up at the hotel. So there's no reason to be doing any kind of prepayments or anything like that. Attach an agenda or something if it's a travel for training purpose, just to show that there was a reason for you to be traveling in the first place. These meals, again, I'm talking about the itemized receipts. That's your fun, Gary.
I was going to say too, Mike, anything out of state has to be pre-approved by Alpha.
Yes. If you're traveling out of state, you have to get a pre-approval form. Anytime you're spending the federal money, think about justification. Have it documented. Think about, if somebody asks me about it, how will I look without some sort of a proof of payment or a receipt or a reason for me to spend that money? It's always better to be more careful than not. Sometimes in your agencies, especially things like the telephone, I know you guys are maybe sharing the bill with other agencies. Just show a little calculation of how the portion that you're billing to ALDOT, how you arrived at it. Have it broken down. Show the auditor something where this is how we come up with. I know some of the counties may share mechanic costs with, say, sheriff's office or something like that. So again, if you have it, allocated to the transit, show how you came up with that, just so the auditor doesn't have to wonder, because they have no idea. They don't do your job. They don't know what you do. They have actually a very small window to learn what you do, so that they can tell you how to do it better. This is a list of basic document practices. The bullet number 3 that says documentation should follow the flow of the summary. If you guys list transactions, try to put the receipts in the order of those transactions so that the auditor can just flip through them and check them off. Because again, their goal is to make sure that everything is correct. Your goal is to get them out of your office. The faster they can do their job, the faster you get them out. These are some of the best practices that John Whiteside put together from some documents for nonprofits, and I decided to include them because some of them, a lot of them make good sense, but a lot of times they're ignored anyway. You should have financial statements. You should know what your financial situation is. I always felt like whenever we did go on an audit, we would request to see the trial balance so that we could sort of put together our own financial statements unless they were already available, just so that we can see how healthy the organization is. Because generally, the more you're in trouble, the more you're likely to justify not doing things the correct way, for lack of a better word. The other thing would be the diversity of resources. The less friends you have, the lonelier you are, the harder you have to work, and a lot of times, it forces you to do things that you shouldn't have done. So generally, it's the organizations that have strong parent above them that can help with the funding that helps to overcome the tough times, the more difficult times. Internal controls in a small organization, you guys know that you wear so many hats that I know Miss Patricia knows. You wear all of them. It's very difficult to segregate things because you literally have to do all of it. But it's still a good idea to be mindful of internal controls and again, do your best. The larger organizations, it's easier because you can assign the different hats to different people, and segregate duties, and have a written plan, written policies that dictate, who does what, and keep checks and balances.
You might have a question about that.
Yeah.
Is there a requirement that we have to go into a certain title or certain level of redundancy for positions, like for instance, something like that? Or is it really what y'all care about is that we have the checks and balances in place? It doesn't really matter what the title is, as long as we know that this person's responsible for this and this person double checking and making sure that there's accountability of those checks and balances.
I honestly don't think that it has anything to do with the titles. I think it's more to do with the duties. You don't want the same person that's signing the checks to, be going to the bank. It's great if you have two people signing the checks. That's an internal control. It's more about what works. But and especially with you guys, you have the resources and the personnel. Some of the smaller organizations, it's a lot more difficult to implement because a lot of times it's just one person show. If you guys have concerns or questions regarding internal controls, I would strongly advise reaching out. I don't mind sitting down with John Whiteside from External Audits. We can take a look at what you have in place, see if we can, help out, beef it up. Generally, there is no problem with internal controls until there's a problem. And that's where you find your weakness in the system. You guys get audited every year? Generally, there is a report on internal controls that the CPA issues, and if he finds weaknesses, they're marked in the report. It's not a bad idea to pay attention to what they're telling you, and you can also ask them to just kind of have a discussion on internal controls. where you can avoid some of the things. Is that good? The board of directors, that's sort of another control, but it's also a really good resource. So kind of pay attention to who is on your board of directors, because a lot of times you will have a great resource there. Retired CPA or a retired executive attorney. You can get a lot of support from your board members, and they'll be very happy to help out when you reach out to them. And a good board is actually pretty diverse, so that they can sort of bounce idea of each other and feed from each other's strength. If you have a board that never meets, they're useless. It's not going to help you any. And we have seen that also, where a lot of the organizations that we dealt with and helped them with their problems, we found where the board members were not involved. It was title only, and their involvement was minimal. It was not something that they took seriously. And a lot of times they had no clue about the problems that we presented them with, and they were very, very surprised. So to summarize your audit preparation, have your backup documentation. Pay a lot more attention to it, because what we see that's coming into the office, it's not something that's very helpful. If you give me a printout of your general ledger, there's very little I can do with it. If you show me your cost recap sheet and I see a number, I don't know what made that number up. I feel like if you would consider looking at something like that little summary that we have created for your cost recap, where you list the individual transactions, in the end, you're really helping out yourself, because you're making sure that what you're doing is done properly. And when you have an auditor come out to your premises, you get them out as soon as possible. If you have issued an invoice and the invoice is altered later on, maybe AllDot calls you and says, "Hey, we need to change this." Keep track of those changes. Keep track of the communication, because you may remember what it is today, but 6 months down the road, you will not be able to remember. You'll be looking at it thinking, "Man, I know there was something that I did," thinking something. No, can't tell you. And 2 years down the road, I guarantee you won't remember any of it. Mm-hmm.
If our program manager contacts us right away and says, the invoice number's wrong, or forgot to take our tab off, claimed it last month and left it on there, or something like that, go ahead and make that change, and they make that change. You have to keep.
I wouldn't. No, I would focus on the invoices that were submitted and paid. But if you have submitted that invoice and it was processed, and then something happens, then I would try to have a documentation of why, especially if the amount changes. The end of the year is coming up. I was asked by finance to please let everybody know, and I'm letting the regional managers know as well, to get your invoices in as soon as possible at the end of fiscal year. Especially, I was told, the JARC DHR invoices, please have them in like in the first week of October, and then try to have everything else back to us. And part of the reason is that if there is something wrong, we want to make sure that there is plenty of time for us to get it back to you, get it done, get it changed. So try to really jump on those invoices in October and get them to us, if you can, by the 10th, if you can't, by the 15th. So we have enough time to process them, and if there are any errors, we can do the corrections, get them to finance, and give it enough time for it to come back from finance with any changes that they could possibly make, and then still get them processed. Does anybody have any questions? This is my contact information. My last name is Fun, so make sure that you can read it well. And please email me with whatever questions, whatever requests. If you guys have concerns, if there's something that you want to discuss personally, shoot me an email. I'll call you and we can talk one-on-one. If you feel like that there may be something that you would want us to come in and look at, or have a concern whether you're not doing something correctly. I got a phone call after the presentation of Muscle Shoals from a lady that was retiring, and she said, please come and check on what's happening after I'm gone, just to make sure that the transition is smooth. So anytime there is any concern like that, please feel free to contact me. Nobody got nothing else? All right, well, I guess I'm done, guys.
We want to thank Mike again for being here and going through this with us. I know it's the details of what it takes to get it right, so I hope that was quite helpful to you. Gary?
Thank you, Michael, for your presentation. I was kind of surprised to see. I figured you wouldn't get any questions, but it seemed like the financial invoice stuff. They had lots of questions. So I feel like we're starting to get back into the talking mode. Like I said before, if you look at the agenda, we have another hot topic session. So this is your time once again. Any questions you have for us or Aldot? I know Randy's in the other session. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask us. And if you don't feel like asking them in front of people, ask them afterwards. You can come up to me or Mr. Lindsay or anybody else. Mike will be here for any more questions. Or email, if you want it in writing. But with that, we'll open the floor. But after this is over, it'll be a good time for you guys to check out and everything. I moved lunch up, so lunch should be ready about 11 to 11:30. It's supposed to be really good, is what they tell me. So, of course, I guess they have to say that. But with that, is there anything anybody'd like to talk about or anything on your mind? I know it's been a good conference, but it's been quiet, and we've all had to keep our distance. So. Anything you guys want to address or ask questions about? We're here to to answer them. So it's your time.
While Gary's up here, if you're thinking of a question, this is a good time to ask it. One other item, if you did not receive a paper certificate this morning, please see Lauren. She has a certificate for everybody who's been in attendance here. So please do that. In a minute, we'll break for a little bit. It's a good time if you have not checked out or gather your stuff up or make arrangements to get in or out of the pool or down on the beach, be a good time to do that. We'll have lunch a little after 11, between 11 and 11:30. So I'll turn it back over to Gary to adjourn this part for the break and then reassemble for lunch. Gary.
Does anybody have anything? Okay, go ahead. Hey, Laura, can I ask you a question, if you don't mind? Could you come up here and say that so I can get you on camera saying that? Yeah, and any kind of comments like that, obviously, love to hear them. We love a pat on the back anytime. But anything negative also, send it to us. But any of the positive stuff, please send an email or something. That'd be great, too. So. Yes, ma'am. Right. I don't want to put Casey on the spot, but do you want to address that? You can come up here if they can't hear you. And the question was just the charge codes, if we're going to get those out faster, basically. Sorry? If you want to come up here, Casey, you can. Okay. Just come up here, Casey. It's a huge room. You gotta put that referee, blow that whistle on him. Come on. I will say that Casey has been working on this. There was an agency we met with earlier that had a similar question, but we do have a few nonprofits, and I know Money and Mike, he's left, but we talk about that all the time. We know the agencies that need the money, and we do try to expedite things. So if there is a problem, I've had providers call me. If there's a problem, call me. You're waiting on an invoice. I know it's your money and you need it, so call me. Any problems, you feel like there's a delay, call me. We'll expedite as fast as possible. I'm sorry, Casey. Go ahead.
As far as the distribution codes, yes, we are working on. You will get them faster. I'll say that we are updating our applications, preparing our applications, getting them out sooner to you guys so we can go through that process. Now that we got the regional managers, that process seems to be flowing a little better. So in the past, we have gotten applications out, sometimes February, March, but I'm already working on FY22 applications to try to get them out to you guys in October at the fiscal year. So we're planning ahead. In turn, that's going to cause you guys to get your distribution codes a lot faster. So that process will be faster, more streamlined, so to speak.
Yeah, I know Casey and Mr. Stroop have let me know that. We're going to start doing these a lot faster, so getting the applications out and everything else. It's a little bit of a learning curve, but we're all about speed, accuracy and speed, so we're trying to,
Yeah.
We don't want to hold up your money, so that's not our goal at all.
Did that kind of answer your question? I'm sorry. Okay.
Thank you, Casey. Yes, ma'am. This room's just so big you can't. For those of you that can't hear, I'm going to translate what Laird said a little bit. You can come up here, come on. But what we're trying to do is consistency and also speed up your process. In the future with this software, we're hoping that you can just pull stuff over, make a few tweaks, not near the effort you have to do. And it'll also catch a lot of the errors. No pressure.
Sure. No. Well, there is a lot of pressure, but again, we're going to, there's a lot of moving parts to this program, but in the end goal is to make this a complete soup to nuts management system for your transit systems. That includes grant management. Notifications is going to be a large part of this. For instance, Mike, wherever he is, there'll be alerts that, for instance, in your disposal, there'll be alerts that along the way, and if it's not approved for some reason, there'll be a very simple alert to the agencies explaining why, and maybe you make these tweaks and you send it right back. So this will speed up things. You know, the ultimate goal is to make it virtually paperless. And so, you know, one of our goals is to have you guys use the system all the time, nearly all the time. I know that there's some other systems out there that are legacy systems that you may use once a quarter, but the ultimate goal here is to provide a technology platform all the way down to mobile apps to where the drivers can enter their mileage and fuel expenditures, and this will all flow into a unified database, which makes all of this possible. So the F-25 will, when you start the process, will a lot of this information will be filled out, and more importantly, it will have so many validations. For instance, if you try to dispose of a vehicle that's, I believe it's 4 years or less than 4 years and less than 100,000 miles, and won't even let you submit. You know, we're working with ALDOT and UAH on the particular rules, but there'll be validations that'll help you not enter bad information. It just won't let you. It'll tell you why. So, you know, again, the entire goal of this is to accuracy and speed. Those are the two words. And everything will be electronic and digital, but also help you not make mistakes so that you don't impede yourselves. So does that help it? So yes, the grant application and management portions, that's a large piece, and we won't probably be able to work on that till next year, but hopefully sometime next year we'll be able to release at least the first version of it. Again, we're gonna release things, and this is something we discussed. There'll be monthly updates, so every month you'll see, or should see, you know, new features and functions. But we need to, and I've got to work with UAH and ALDOT on how we're going to roll this stuff out so that you guys know what's coming, and you're not logging in and surprised by whole new screens. So we need to work with them to develop an ongoing release plan. So how do we let you guys know? I think as soon as it's released to all the agencies, we certainly are going to do some seminars, some webinars, and will be available for one-on-one training as well. So don't be afraid of this technology. It's going to help for sure. That's one thing that it's not just the technology, it's about user buy-in. We need all of you guys to get excited and help us build it. So does that answer the question? Anybody? Okay. Thank you.
Anything else anybody has? Anything you want to address on that, Mike? Are you good?
I did want to bring up, Brad already mentioned, we are bringing in another team member. She'll be starting in a couple of weeks, and I will work, I'll work hard to train her on the invoice review and prep and process. And then we have some plans for doing more of the hands-on F-25 training, on-site visits, doing some financial reviews, but also, like I said, if you guys do have a need and have questions and want me to come and, you know, sit down, spend a few days, and look over your financial system to see if everything's okay, if you guys are in good shape for your financial audit, please reach out to me. We have been just incredibly slammed with this CARES Act over the last 6 months, I guess. The regional managers have been a fantastic asset. Amanda has been a fantastic asset. I had great help from Katrina and from Rashida at the office, and I feel like now is a good time, because when I was brought on from audits, and what I've been doing the last 6 or 8 months was more of a accounting, bookkeeper type work. So the audit and audit prep and training For audit, I think that's going to be something that that I will be transitioning more into. So if you guys have the need, we are slowly getting to the point where I will have the time to help hands-on. So don't hesitate.
Yeah, I would like to echo that. If you know Mike, I talk to him every day, and if there's an invoice that comes through, he's trying to get it out as fast as possible. So that's been our focus, getting you guys paid, getting you the CARES Act reimbursement. But now with the extra staff, Michael's still going to be doing invoices and still be the normal thing, but it's going to give him some freedom to help you guys go out. Same with the regionals. We've had some meetings where agency has called and asked us to come out and talk to him about some different things. Casey has gone with us. It's the goal was to come to you. You have a problem, you call us, we'll come to you. So I'd say our door's always open, but I'd really say our car's always running. We're ready to go. So call us, whatever you need. If there's no other questions, we can recess. You guys check out. Oh, hold on. Mr. Thompson.
Does anybody have any vehicle questions?
Uh-oh. Come on up here, Tommy. Come on, Tommy. I just got one question, Tommy. Where's my bus?
Good morning. On the vehicles, of course, 2020 has been a terrible year all the way around. It first started with our manufacturers, Ford, changed engines. So there are no 2020 chassis available. So we had no vehicles to order, even if we wanted some. And keep the vendors in mind, those that have provided the funding for our thing. They've had a terrible year. So all those that were here this weekend, give them a lot of props. Because if we'd probably had this a month or two later, a lot of them wouldn't have been here. Had a bad year. And so now the 2021 chassis are available, but we have decided to rebid all of our vehicles. There's been some hang-ups with FTA and the state about our bid procedure, so we're trying to get that figured out now. But right now we'll have the minivan, the high roof van that you've seen out here, our regular modified 15-passenger van, 17-passenger, 21, 25, and then what we've called the heavy duty, the big 30-passenger bus. That's 7 buses. Now there's 4 variations, say, of each bus. So that means we'll be bidding 28 buses, and that's a lot. So hopefully as soon as we can get this bid situation worked out, we can put them out for bid, and then we have to get them in and evaluate the bids and go through the Buy America and all that. And hopefully we'll have all the vehicles ready to order. Hopefully by the first of the year. But things are out of our hands right now. We're trying to get that hammered out. So, but that's a lot of vehicles to bid at one time. And we're not going, I guess one thing, we're not going to have the options that we had before. If it's a safety concern, we're making it standard. You used to have all these options you could pick from. If it's safety, we're making it standard, like cameras, bumpers, the safety bumpers. But things like executive package, advertising package, we're leaving that off because we'd like a standard bus, because when it comes for Buy America, the more options you have, the more, even more different buses you have. And we just want them standard, so they have to meet the 70% built in America. So, you know, they got to prove that, and then I got to make sure it's, you know, it is 70% made in America. So we've got some obstacles to go through, but we can get it handled. So if you can just bear with us and try to provide you with the best bus we can get. Any other questions? At the best price we can get it for. Pardon me? Exactly, like you always do. So.
I was just going to say that this is a side note, but transportation sites have changed. Ron Henry's no longer there. Sean Connor's the contact.
Oh, that's in the maintenance?
Yes, and I've dealt with him, but recently, like just last week, I had to pick up the bus, and he is awesome.
Okay, well, good. But we're rebidding the vehicle, so we'll see who.
Well, I mean, we may still have to have more business with them, but I was going to consider using it. In the past, I haven't had a lot of success with them, but just you guys are awesome.
And I've heard good things about their guy that they send around to fix things. Oh, really? Well, I've heard good. I think Loris, you've told several people have said that's great. He comes by and he fixes everything. He inspects everything, and he's been a real good asset. Which is, I hope we have for everybody. You know, whoever wins, you know, they'll have somebody to do that.
We have personally used Tyler on several occasions, and he's very meticulous in his paperwork, so, you know, he will send you exactly what he did on what vehicle. You don't even have to worry about is the vehicle in warranty or not. He does all of that for you. I mean, he's just great. Before, we would take things down to Transportation South, deal with Ron Henry, and we would be told that our vehicle was ready to get down there, and it wasn't ready. We don't have that issue anymore. We don't have to take vehicles down there, she drives off the road, we just call Tyler, he comes out and takes care of the problems. So that's been great.
Yeah, and let me know if something goes wrong with your vehicle. Like I hear the stories. Well, you know, it's been sitting at the shop for 3 weeks now. Well, I know, but I'm saying there's, you know, said, well, you know, it's been sitting there for 3 weeks. I said, well, let me know after it's been a couple of days. You know, because heck, it'll sit there 3 more weeks.
We would have to take vehicles down there 3 or 4 times, same problem.
And
Mom would say, "It's ready," and I'd say, "Well, did they do this?" "Oh, let me go check." "Oh, no, they didn't do that." Well, if I'd gone on what he said, then we'd be right back to that.
well, that's, you know, just let me know if you have problems, and I can do what I can do to help, especially if it's under warranty. You know, it gets out of warranty, then we have to do the best we can. But
Another thing that Tyler has been doing for us, the remote tech from Transportation South, is, you know, you all have started requiring us to have a preventive maintenance policy as far as our lifts, in our vehicles. And so we actually had him come out one day, he was parked under our shelter, and we, you know, fed him buses all day long, and he checked all the lifts that day before he left. So that was, you know, that, requirement was taken care of.
did you document it? Okay.
Document that he actually goes through the lift and he signs off that either it was okay, or we had a couple of lifts that had cracked and bloody, so we had to take those buses out of commission. But, you know, he was able to do it right here where it was convenient for us.
Well, just make sure you document it, otherwise it didn't happen. Okay, good. But that's all I know. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Tommy. Michael, do you want to come up here? Michael was telling me he wanted to address a little bit the fiscal cliff. Have you guys heard about the fiscal cliff? What they're saying is after this CARES Act money runs out, you still need to stay on your commissioners, try to get what money you can, because you don't want them to forget about you in 3 years and say, oh, we haven't had to pay anything for 3 years. Why do you need money? So, anything else you want to say about that?
Yep, I mean, basically right now everything is very convenient because everything is funded at 100%. And you have to realize that that's not going to last. And as a matter of fact, it may last just long enough for you to lose your seat at the table. So don't get complacent. Keep putting pressure on your counties, your county commissions, your benefactors, Bobby, anybody who's making donations to the nonprofit. Part of the idea behind CARES Act was to alleviate the burden of lost tax revenue from the local governments. So the local governments may not be funded at the level where they were before CARES Act. So when you come in and ask for the money, you may not get what you were getting in the past. But that's not the idea. The idea is to get something. The idea is for them to not lose track of your face. The idea is that they remember that there is transit, and the need for transit will come up again. Because you don't want to be losing those relationships just because you're 100% funded right now, and then try to reestablish those relationships down the road when you need them, because that's the point when it's too late. So right now, and that's part of the issue that I was talking to Matthew, is that we're trying to figure out this revenue situation and come up with the best guidance for you guys. But you have the opportunity right now to build a rainy day fund that you can use for the time when CARES Act money runs out, and you are trying to reconnect and reestablish those relationships.
One thing about that, this money that's being set aside over and over, I've been advised that this needs to go in a non-interest bearing account, obviously. But also with that money you'll be able to use, but me and Casey, I'll get with Casey and Mr. Stroop, but it's going to have to be approved. It's have to be, don't think that pot of money is just there and you're going to go have a company retreat in Aspen or something. That's not happening. So there's still going to be some, we're going to be watching that money a little bit, because the feds are going to have us account for it sooner or later. So
one of the issues is that you are supposed to be operating at a deficit. The moment we fund you 100%, and you collect $1 of contract revenue, you're no longer at deficit. So it's a catch-22. There was no guidance from FTA. I know that Mr. Stroop actually reached out to the FTA, and he was trying to figure out what the way to handle the situation is. We're still working on it, and Casey's working on providing an actual policy that will be put out. But guys, keep in mind, I don't know how many of you have been through the ARA money. All that stuff was just so heavily audited down the road, and I believe that CARES Act is not going to be any different. So be very careful. Make sure you're treating it properly. If you guys do have contract revenue, remember you're 100% funded right now. Take that contract revenue, set it aside, keep track of it. If an auditor comes and they want to see it, show them how much was collected, how much appears on your cost recap sheet. Show them where it went into the bank, show them that the balance is there, show them that it's not earning interest, because you're not supposed to earn interest on federal funds, and be prepared to show the documentation and answer questions.
And that's one thing too. Mr. Lindsay is working on it, Mr. Stroop and Mr. Rogers. It's not funny, but I will say ALDOT has made every attempt to get clear guidance from FTA, and so have I, and several times questions have gone unanswered. I'm sure they're swamped just like everybody else, but ALDOT's trying to get the proper guidance and do everything right. It's just the contract revenue is a very tricky area. So,
Well, Matthew just brought up in-kind revenue, so that makes it more fun.
Yeah, I think we're good. We just wanted to mention that. That's on our mind, so. Anything else? You guys ready to check out and get out of here? Any closing comments, Mr. Lindsay, you'd like to make? We put you through enough. Yeah, and we're not just blowing smoke. We really appreciate the coordination and effort and just what you guys have done over this time in history. You know, you're kind of making history, taking care of those people who have nobody. So we just really appreciate you guys.